Did you see the red carpet that the king was given last year when he came? How disgraceful was that? I mean, I cried tears, and my children were wondering. I said, this is the greatest insult of the whole of my life. That we can be able to roll out a red carpet for the king who colonized us, yet we do not want to know where Dedan Kimathi Washiori is buried. Because if he's buried in Nyeri, or in Taita Taveta, or in Uhuru Park, that becomes a shrine. And it reignites and unites the Gen Zs to stand up for their country. That is why they can't do that.
Peace and blessings, everybody. I am your brother Orina, all the way from the motherland, all the way from Kenya, Nairobi, nation's capital. Welcome to SELL Africa to Africans, the home of Pan-Africanism. Today, we have special is an understatement. We have a super special guest, one of the most brilliant minds in Kenya, the director of Future of Kenya Foundation and Nairobi governor aspirant. Today we're going to talk about all about it, but I feel like Kenyans talk about politics, but they don't understand who really controls them. So today we'll focus more on that. We'll talk about, corruption, bad leadership in Kenya, but we have to talk about the source of Kenyan problem. Today, guys, please welcome the one and only Cyprian Nyamwamu. Cyprian.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Orina.
Oh, thank you so much.
I feel privileged to be here.
I feel privileged to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I feel privileged to have. How are you doing today?
I'm fabulous. Mm-hmm. I am always seeing the positive of everything that is happening in Kenya, but also what's happening in Africa. We are not where we want to be, but we are not where we used to be. Yeah.
We're not where we used to be.
We are not where we want to be, but we are not where we used to be.
Thank you.
Yes.
I feel like when you talk about Kenya, I like what you said. You said that the problem with Kenya is not the political class. It's not Ruto. It's not Raila. It's not Uhuru, Kibaki, Moi, Kenyatta. The problem is colonialism, is the Imperial British East African Company. And these guys are just a branch of this tree of colonialism.
Rina, if you misdiagnose the disease, you are going to prescribe the wrong medication. Currently, in the Kenyan context, I see propositions, I see the medication that is being prescribed. And it is faulty because it is based on the wrong diagnosis of what the Kenyan problem is. William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki, in the political class, as it were, even Moi is the one who jailed me 19 times.
I remember. You really fought his regime, huh?
Moi is the one who jailed me 18 times and Mwai Kibaki once. Actually, twice. Mwai Kibaki was twice. So that it was 17 times Moi and 2 times. But even then, I understood very clearly that Arap Moi and Mwai Kibaki are nyaparas.
Okay.
That's a Kiswahili word, which means that they are just enforcers of the imperialist capitalist system, global imperialist capitalist system. If I can take a minute on that to explain it, is that they are in the global imperialist capitalist system, there's what we call the core of capitalism, and then there's the periphery of capitalism. So we are in the periphery of capitalism, and there's the core of capitalism.
Okay.
So the way the world works is that value moves from the periphery to the core. And that is how Kenya and East Africa was established. It was established as a company, the Imperial British East Africa Company. And so in 1920, that company took a colonial political format. That's when Kenya became a colony in 1920. And so the state was established to facilitate the movement of value from the periphery to the core of capitalism. So that the people who are in power in Nairobi, in Kenya, are nyaparas. They are facilitators of value moving from the periphery to the core of capitalism.
Okay.
If you fail to understand that, then you will find yourself having the kind of petty conversations that are happening in Kenya that, you know, the Luos have been marginalized, the Kikuyus are the ones who are the problem, the Kalenjins are the ones who are whatever, and their leader, William Ruto, is the problem. William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki, Arap Moi, Jomo Kenyatta are all mere facilitators. And that's where we've spoken about the first liberation, the second liberation, and now the conversation around the third liberation. If you do not understand that the first liberation failed.
Yes, it did.
It was a false liberation. We were just given flag independence. But everything in terms of economic and political power remained with Britain and with the imperial powers which are led by the United States of America. So we are what we call in political economy, we are a client state, which has over time, under Uhuru and Moi and the Ruto, a client state that has become a slave queen state. A slave queen state. You see, a client state is paid to do a certain job. But a slave queen state is paid by everybody else. So it's China, it's Russia, it is so-and-so, it is America, it is Britain. We've now become a proper slave queen state. So we don't even have our sovereignty. We don't have independence. We don't have an economy. And we do not own anything that we call Kenyan. And so to start believing that the mere removal of William Ruto, which we have to do anyway, it's important that we remove William Ruto so that we can be able to have somebody who understands what the problem is and somebody who's helping Kenyans to actually solve the problem. William Ruto is part of the problem and is not helping it. He's an enabler of the continuation of the imperial, neo-colonial and the neoliberal capture of the Kenyan state and economy. So William Ruto is a problem in that sense. He's a facilitator, he's an enabler, but he's not the problem. He's not the problem. So Kenyans have to unite to address the problem, which is that our first liberation failed. That is why we still do not know where Dedan Kimathi Washori is buried. In a country that claims to be independent, 7 decades later, we don't know where Dedan Kimathi, the leader of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, is buried. But the British Army, which Dedan Kimathi was fighting, is still in Kenya and occupies Karen, occupies Isiolo, occupies Nanyuki, occupies northern Kenya, Samburu, all these places. So what independence is that? When we have American bases all over Kenya, from Wajir to Manda to everywhere, including Nairobi. The British are in Nanyuki. They didn't go anywhere. So even who becomes president in Kenya is determined not by Kenyans, and we keep lying to ourselves that we are the ones who determine who becomes the Kenyan president. If the vote is the one which determines who gets to become president, how come Raila was not allowed to become president in 2007? He was not allowed. The only 2 countries that congratulated Mwai Kibaki that he has won the election was only the United States of America and Uganda.
Interesting.
The rest of the world knew that that election
was a sham.
was rigged, you know. So these presidents that are even vying here, do they know that who becomes president of Kenya is determined outside Kenya? And so you see people saying that, you know, it's the Kikuyus who denied Raila power.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so petty because it is ignorant. It is not the Kikuyu who denied Raila power. It is the one determining who should become Kenyan president who decide. So in 2022, the Americans and the British decided that they must get a president who moves Kenya away from the Chinese orientation. In the current global structure of BRICS and everything else, they said that they must get a president who is going to return Kenya to the orbit of the Western imperialist fulcrum. Why? Because Mwai Kibaki came to power in 2002.
Yeah.
He was the only president who was not determined by the imperial powers. The imperial powers were working with Moi to get Uhuru to power.
And they failed.
And then Kenyans ganged in October, very late in the year, and formed the National Rainbow Coalition, supported Mwai Kibaki. Even before the imperial powers would get a space, President Mwai Kibaki had been elected by such a huge margin. And that is why the policies of Mwai Kibaki in the first 5 years were anti-imperialism. He did not borrow from the IMF and the World Bank, and they focused on mobilizing domestic resources, offering free primary education, which is against the World Bank prescriptions, supporting low-interest financial access to businesses. And that's how the economy was re-engineered under Mwai Kibaki, because they didn't have a say in terms of what policies were being... and that was very short-lived, very, very short-lived. Soon, they realized that if we allow this to continue, we are going to lose. So 20 years of that looking east while holding the relationship with the West disturbed them. Chinese imports to Kenya in 2002 were 6%. Chinese imports to Kenya were only 6%. By 2022, which is 20 years later, they had grown from 6% to 23%. Wow. Nearly a quarter of everything that was being imported to Kenya was Chinese. This is the problem that America and Britain had with the Uhuru and the Mwai Kibaki leadership for making the fulcrum to move east and cooperating with China and doing infrastructure, doing a lot of these things. They were not comfortable with that. So they said the end of the looking east has to come now. And their candidate was, Samoei Arap Ruto. And they invested everything to ensure that was possible, including how they manipulated the elections.
Yeah.
So we are moving into another election in 17 months. And the conversation is that, Kikuyus did this, Luos did this, and so did this. This is a lie. We know that Raila was voted for. He was elected in 2022. But he was not allowed to become president. So how do we change how do we solve the problem if the wrong diagnosis is what is currently happening? And so I want to conclude that by saying that there are these what we call anchor states that the West has, Nigeria there, Kenya here, they have lost South Africa.
They have lost South Africa completely.
They have lost South Africa. Egypt is to our north, etc. Their idea, and Condoleezza Rice told us this to our faces in 2008. She told us to our faces, 6 of us from civil society were meeting her. And she told us that Kenya is too important to be left to Kenyans alone. Kenya is too important to be left to Kenyans alone.
I remember the ambassador the other day said that everything we do in Africa, we first do it in Kenya.
Exactly.
That's what I've been saying. Kenya is a very westernized country.
Extremely. I mean, in every sense. We have moved from being a client state to a slave queen state. We are a vassal country. Here, everything from our education to our economy to our... You saw the Finance Bill 2024 when Ruto was massacring, the Gen Zs. The Finance Bill was written at Treasury Building by IMF and American congressmen and the businessmen were at the lobby of Parliament to ensure that the Finance Bill passes as it had been prescribed. So William Ruto is just a figurehead here, who is being given helicopters and armored personnel vehicles to murder Kenyans to ensure that Kenya remains a vassal neo-colonial state, which I normally describe as a railway line state and a railway line economy, which only serves external interests and not Kenyans, as it were. That's why we can't be allowed to industrialize this country. That's why we can't be allowed to use our land and natural resources for our benefit. Americans are here. They have taken all the minerals with the British because they are the ones who know where the minerals are. The British concluded the mineral exploration in this country in 1949. And once they knew where all the minerals were, they created national reserves, game parks, and all those kinds of things so that they can now come in as conservancy experts in Nanyuki, in Marsabit, in Isiolo, in Naivasha, in Voi, in all those places. So they know this is where the resources are. So they created these mbuga za wanyama, which is basically the conservancies and the national parks and all those kinds of things. And they are the ones who are still exploiting those resources 7 decades after so-called independence of 1963. So Kenya is actually the country that must end neocolonialism if Africa is going to be liberated. Because Kenya is one among the 4 only countries in Africa that experienced what we call settler colonialism. Not every country faced settler colonialism. It's only 4 countries that faced settler colonialism. And I'm going to tell you what that is. So it was Algeria, it was Kenya, it was Zimbabwe, it was South Africa. The British and the French were not planning to leave Kenya. They were not planning to leave Zimbabwe. They were not planning to leave South Africa. The French were not planning to leave Algeria. So in these 4 countries, we had to do armed struggle to remove the colonial powers. That is not what was happening in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in Uganda. These were what we call administrative colonies. Administrative colonies. So ending colonialism in those countries was very easy because they only were administrative colonies. But for Kenya, Algeria, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, there was no plan of leaving at all. So they were not planning to leave Kenya. That's why they call it White Highlands, built the railway to expropriate all these resources. And so when you lack this basic political knowledge of what country you are living in, then you see people campaigning on the basis of tribes. Oh, it's the turn of this tribe to do this tribe. That is not the issue with Kenya. No tribe can fix the problem if we are not united as the people of Kenya to actually address the problem, which is, number 1, establish our sovereignty. Number 2, build a developmental democratic state. Number 3, ensure that the democracy builds institutions that serve the people of Kenya. And number 4, use Kenyan resources to actually invest in the people of Kenya. Those 4 things do not exist in this country. So all these musical chairs that you are seeing all over this place are just that. They are musical chairs.
Do you feel like opposition is just another example of musical chairs like you see?
They are. But you see what we did in 2002, and I was at the core of it, if I can just take a minute on that, is that we understand the problem. So we said, instead of leaving this to the British and the Americans to decide for us, why don't we create an opposition alliance and get them to power with our money so that the British are not the ones who are paying for the election of these guys. That's what we did with Kibaki. And so you saw that we had a chance to do a few things for a very short while. The window was very short. So that's what we want to try this time round. If you can be able to bring an alliance of Kenyans, and then they are not influenced in terms of who becomes president, you can be able to get a few things done within that short window before the British and the Americans. Maybe I should not be saying every detail about this, the strategy. So basically we are saying the people in the opposition, by themselves, they actually do not understand what the problem is.
They don't.
Because they are part of it.
Yeah.
Just like Mwai Kibaki was part of the problem. But what we did is that we installed him with our votes and our money, and because of that, he was beholden to us. So Kenyans must be able to raise money quickly. Are you following what I'm saying?
I am.
They must raise money quickly and install their candidate before the British decide for us and the Americans. Because if they are going to decide for us next year, they might want to retain Ruto. Because he's very good for them.
Not even might. That's what they are planning to do.
That's what they are planning.
Yeah.
Ruto has been excellent for the foreign powers.
Yeah.
In every sense. So if we allow them to continue with their strategy, we are the losers. So we have to cobble up a strategy where we quickly, across the 47 counties and the 290 constituencies, create structures, people structures, which then get our own president, who we can be able to dictate a few things to before the state is again recaptured.
Yeah.
Because the capture-recapture window happens very quickly. Those guys are not sleeping. The moment they realize that they have lost a bit of mileage, they cause a lot of trouble. They even finance instability and everything else, so that you bow back to their whims and the demands. So we are in a continuous struggle. It's a continuous struggle with imperialist powers to not remove them, because we don't have the military and the weaponry to remove them. So how can we get some policy, what in policy we call policy legroom? What we are looking for is policy legroom to deliver a bit of education, a bit of healthcare, a bit of agriculture before Bill Gates takes over the GMOs and everything else. Yeah. So we are in a struggle to try and do a few things for Kenyans before the Americans get all they want. It's a continuous struggle. We are in a struggle.
It's a struggle.
So it's not about a struggle between Sijui Kalenjins and Luyas and Luos and Kikuyu. No. That's foolishness. Do you get what I'm saying?
I am.
Yeah, that is foolishness, because that is not what the problem is. We have to understand who the problem is. The problem with Ruto is that he's just a willing enabler of imperialism and neocolonialism. He's selling all our parastatals. He's selling all our public investments. He has sold out our minerals.
Gold in Western Kenya.
Gold in Western Kenya. Murima Hills, out there in Kwale, has what we call Niobam.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It's
how many? Do you understand?
Million. It's
about $63 billion worth.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Which can pay all our debts. So, but you see, Ruto is not part of our struggle to liberate this country. He is an agent of imperial powers who is in office to benefit them and also enrich himself. That's where your corruption dilemma comes in. Corruption, let me put it very easily, corruption is the reward that the Kenyan ruling elite are given by the imperial powers to allow them to expropriate the economy.
Okay.
So corruption is not an accident. It is actually a very well tailored package that you are told, once you give us the economy, military bases, you give us everything that we want, you do your corruption. Do your corruption. And that's why Ruto talks to us the way he talks to us, because he knows that he does these things with impunity. He does not answer to us, he answers to them. And that's why you will see him in some conference in Europe speaking against Russia. Then the following month, he is with Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, that is worse than being an harlot.
Yeah.
That's being worse than being an harlot, isn't it? Because you people just look at you and say, what kind of a person is this? Today you are saying, oh, Russia, please give us fertilizer. Then the following month you are saying, oh, Russia must move out of Ukraine. Then 3 months later, oh, Russia, we support you. You just look that you don't even know what you're doing.
He's trying to get the best of both worlds.
Not best. His commissions, not for Kenya. His wealth. It is about his wealth. And the cronies are around him. Yeah. So Kenya is the net loser. And when we are having a conversation about what kind of transition we should do in 2027, then you are told, oh, Kikuyus, oh, Luos, oh, it's Kalenjins, Luyas must do this. And they have positioned all these people that they use, including intellectuals like Mutai Ngunyi, to confuse the people and just change language and bring very interesting figures. What is the census of Luyas? What's the census of Luos? What does that even mean? It's absolutely is nonsense. If you do not understand that even being given power will not change anything if you do not have structures and the people who are going to support you to change the Kenyan state. The Kenyan state is the problem. It's a neocolonial state.
Wow. Now, IMF, I'm very happy. By the way, you mentioned Dedan Kimathi. Yesterday was February 18th. It was
the day it was
his execution.
His execution.
And one thing about the Mau Mau is that I don't see the reverence we give them. I don't see the respect we give them. I don't see it. Like you see other countries, they really revere their heroes. But Kenya, I don't see the reverence we give to the Mau Mau.
In 2022, I saw Kikuyus voting for William Ruto.
Yeah.
And the reason they were voting for him is that he's a born-again Christian. You understand? Yet these Kikuyus are the people who know the struggle that Dedan Kimathi Washori and the Kenya Land and Freedom Alliance was involved in. So there is a problem with the Kenyan education system, is that our education system produces enemies of Kenya. Citizens, 95% of Kenyan citizens are the enemy because they do not know what the Kenyan national interests are. I think we should stop this nonsense of allowing everybody to vote, because unless you understand what you are voting about, you should not be allowed to vote.
Interesting.
How can people vote against their own national interests? How can you vote for an imperial stooge, an agent of foreign interests? How can these people, the reason why Dedan Kimathi's grave cannot be allowed by the 5 presidents. Kimathi's wife demanded that she is not buried until the husband's grave is found. And Ruto and Gachagua claims that he's a Mau Mau, I don't know what nonsense.
Son of Mau Mau.
Son of Mau Mau. It's only Raila who demanded that Kimathi's grave be found before they can bury the wife. This was the wife's wish. They didn't allow that. Why? Because Ruto, like Mwai Kibaki, like Jomo Kenyatta, are all enemies of Kenyans. It is not just Kalenjins who are enemies of Kenya. It is all of them, all the 5. And the 3 of those 5 presidents have been Kikuyu. One a father, the other a son, and then Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki happens to be Uhuru Kenyatta's godfather, if you know that, at his baptism, Uhuru Kenyatta's baptism. So these are enemies of Kenya. They can't allow us to know where Dedan Kimathi Waciori's grave is, because it will become a shrine. It will become a shrine. You've seen what happened in Bonda at Raila's grave.
What happened?
It has become a shrine.
Yeah, it is.
Because that is how you reincarnate the spirit of Mau Mau. If we, because Wafula Buke and I demanded and even bought a billboard and took it to Uhuru Park, because we said Kimathi has to be buried at Uhuru Park, because he's the one who fought for Uhuru. So he has to be buried at a public space, Uhuru Park. His bones must be buried there. Why? So that Kenyans can be able to reincarnate the spirit of freedom. So Kimathi's grave cannot be allowed by these neocolonial stooges, because the British know. Did you see the red carpet that the king was given last year when he came? How disgraceful was that? I mean, I cried tears, and my children were wondering. I said, this is the greatest insult of the whole of my life. That we can be able to roll out a red carpet for the king who colonized us, yet we do not want to know where Dedan Kimathi Waciori is buried. Because if he's buried in Nyeri, or in Taita Taveta, or in Uhuru Park, that becomes a shrine. And it reignites and unites the Gen Zs to stand up for their country. That is why they can't do that.
And of course,
if you go to countries like, Cuba, everywhere their national hero is buried in the center of the capital city, so that keeps the spirit of revolution going. That's why they can't allow us to bury Dedan Kimathi. And I'm still requesting Wafula Buke and other comrades that we must immediately remove William Ruto from power. We must find Dedan Kimathi's grave, bones, and bury him at Uhuru Park. We must bury him at Uhuru Park. That's why I want to become the governor of Nairobi, so that we can be able to relaunch Nairobi as the place of revolution. The spirit of freeing and liberating Kenya is in Nairobi. And we must recapture it, because this is where the spirit of revolution and Mau Mau is centered and headquartered in Nairobi.
We'll talk about your governor race. By the way, Nairobi's in a mess, but we'll deal with that. But speaking about, you spoke about the IMF. I'd like us to spend some time on the IMF. People don't really understand the IMF and the World Bank and these Bretton Woods institutions. How is the IMF, I know this, but for people who don't know, how is the IMF ruining African countries' economies?
It is very, very simple, actually, except that people want it to look complicated. It's not complicated. So the new way of recolonizing countries is through debt. Because once you lend somebody money, you control the kinds of policies he makes. Because you have to get repaid fast. So every policy in that country has to gear towards repaying you your money. In the IMF, influences how private lenders behave towards you. If you are in bad books with IMF, the private lenders refuse to give you money. So that's how IMF and World Bank become very effective in terms of how they control what I earlier called the policy legroom. Your policy behavior is determined by the IMF policy. So in 2022,
Okay.
yeah, 2022, March, I think it was March 19th, Uhuru Kenyatta called William Ruto back to State House to sign this IMF document. And the 13-page document said that we must end all subsidies. Remember, we were coming out of COVID.
Yes.
So we didn't have money and we needed to reboot the economy, as it were. And so they were given conditionalities. And that is where the language called fiscal consolidation, fiscal as in F-I-S-C-A-L, fiscal consolidation came. So the state was required to put all the revenue accounts together where IMF can be able to see it. And that is when all these things of schools paying through the citizen pay bill number and the hospitals and the car parks and everybody, that's how that came. So that there is fiscal consolidation.
Okay.
So that IMF can be able to see on the dashboard that you are actually raising the money to pay them. So what happens is that IMF and World Bank will never talk about the problem about Kenyan debt, which is what we call odious debt. Okay. Odious debt. We now owe both domestic and external lenders. We owe them about 11.8 trillion shillings, which is a lot of money in dollar terms. That is basically a lot of economies in Africa. Is a lot. We owe a lot of money. 11.8 trillion
Kenyan shillings.
So what happens every year is that we have to borrow to balance the budget, because the deficit, the budget deficit, has been increasing. And I'm simplifying this so for everybody to understand. Because of this continuous borrowing, we cannot do without IMF. Because if IMF does not give us money, we can't even pay salaries. We can't pay salaries. We can't build things. We can't pay for our education. So the budget is so huge, but we don't have the money. Because 70 shillings in every 100 goes towards paying debt. So the whole country remains with 30 shillings out of every 100 to now manage the military, education, the police, healthcare, everything. We can't. So what do? We borrow more. What does that do? It increases the budget deficit for next year. And so we are basically at the mercy of IMF and World Bank, because if they don't give us the money in time, we may not even be able to pay salaries. So what have we done? We are completely at the mercy of these two banks, and they dictate what we do in education. They say, don't pay county governments. Don't pay for healthcare. So what has happened in healthcare? It has been privatized through SHA. And you keep going like that. So that is the power of IMF. And it is not just in Kenya. The situation became so bad in Zambia, in Ethiopia, and in Ghana. They had to do extreme measures had to be undertaken. And that is when, for example, in Ghana, they brought this thing called the haircut. So what happens when a country becomes, goes under debt distress, and the haircut has to be introduced, is that every sovereign, the citizens are the sovereign, must, his bank balance, M-Pesa balance, everything has to be slashed. If it is by 70%, it's by 70%. If it's by 30%, by 30%. So that you secure money, because there's no tax revenue to pay debt. So you have to go to raid the banks of every citizen who are called the sovereign to raise money to pay debt. Because if you don't do that to private lenders, IMF will not give you more money. So what do? You have to allow for the haircut to be introduced, like it was introduced in Ghana. I think it was about 28%. So everybody's bank balance reduced by 28% by the following day morning.
Wow.
Whether it's on M-Pesa, whether it is in the bank account, wherever it is, it has to be slashed. Your next month's salary is going to be less by 30%.
That's a heist.
It is what debt does to countries. That's why we are not independent countries. That's why we don't have any sovereignty, as it were. And that is why America and the imperial powers like France and Britain use these banks to continue with the colonization of African countries. And it is a disaster. That is why African countries cannot make basic decisions. One of the decisions that has completely been compromised is that we cannot industrialize. There's no African country that can industrialize. Because you can't industrialize if 5 things are not in place. I hope you've connected the IMF,
yes,
lending, internal decisions, and the impact on education, healthcare, industrialization, economy, employment creation. All that cannot happen. For a country to industrialize, there are 5 things you have to do. The first thing is that you have to lower interest rates so that people can access money to invest in machinery, in production. That is not going to be possible if the interest rates are at the place they are in. Kenyans do not know that the interest rate in America is 4%. The interest rate in a lot of European countries is 4.3%. The interest rate in Japan is 3.6%. The interest rate in China is 3.7%. What's the interest rate in Kenya? 23%. Wow. You must, first of all, deal with the interest rate.
It discourages borrowing.
So that you have to discourage domestic borrowing to lower interest rates. That's the first thing that Mwai Kibaki did. The second thing you have to do is that you have to lower taxes. You cannot tax yourself into growth.
You can't.
The more you increase taxes, the more investors quit, including domestic. Because if you are going to business, you are going to business to do profit. But if the cost of money is 23%, the cost of tax is 40%, that's already 60 what? 63%. Of all that you are doing is going to pay debt and pay taxes.
Wow.
Then you have employees to employ and pay. So what are you going to get out of that business? Nothing.
Nothing. There's no
so
profit.
the first thing you do is that you lower interest rates. Number 2 is that you have to lower taxes. You have to totally minimize taxes so that people have the appetite to invest. Number 3 is that you must completely lower the cost of doing business. Electricity and power is one of the biggest costs of doing business anywhere on earth. Egypt is a desert, but Kenya is the country in Africa with the most costly power. The cost in Kenya is abominable. Nobody can do business here if you are paying a bill, even in domestic, in houses. If you look at what people pay for domestic use, is abominable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you may think that you are running a light industry in your house. Yeah, because of the kinds of whatever. So that's number 3. You have to lower tax. Number 4 is that you have to completely crush corruption. All these East Asian countries, China included, and all those countries,
Singapore.
The thing about them is that there is no corruption. Just last week, a billionaire Chinese tech, whatever, was jailed for 20 years. I don't know whether you saw that. Corruption is punished severely. Here, corruption is what
praised.
If you ask, I've South Koreans, I've Japanese, Chinese friends who have come here to invest. And the cost of doing business in the counties is that you are asked for 100 million, 300 million shillings before you set up. So you ask yourself, what's the business of setting up? Dangote came here and they left.
Cement, yeah. I remember.
And they left.
Yeah.
So Kenya is not open to business. This is not a country. A few years ago I said, this is actually not a country. This is a plantation. This is Ruto's plantation on behalf of the foreign masters. We are just working for the 1% ruling class in Kenya and foreign powers and interests. We are just here to pay rent and to work daily, to pay tax and to pay interest rates and to survive in this plantation. This is not a country, it's not an economy. And we have to address these issues. That's number 4 about corruption.
Corruption. So we have interest rates.
Interest rates, tax. Then you have to deal with the cost of doing business. Then you have to deal with the issue of corruption. Mm-hmm. Number 5, which is important, is that you must invest in education and technical education at that. Massive technical education. So that you have equipped, skilled people who can create things, who can industrialize, who can be able to turn agricultural products into, trade things to export to Europe and all over the place. Mm-hmm. So our education system is getting worse, not better. It's getting worse, not better. The people are coming out of university and now they are unemployed in their millions. It's a crisis, and we are talking about the African youth bulge. If we do not equip and tool our education so that it can be able to help in industrialization, those are the 5 things that you have to invest in. The people that you are giving education must have healthcare. They must have housing. They must have food. So that's what we call investing in the people. That's the pillar of investing in the people. But the pillar of investing in the people has to be preceded by the policy on interest rates and access to money. It has to deal with tax policy. It has to deal very directly with the cost of doing business. Number 4, it has to crush corruption before you invest. That's how you raise money to invest in the people. Yeah. Once those 5 things are in place, you industrialize next year. That's what we call the industrial policy. But Ruto does not have an industrial policy. What are we discussing? Take Kenyans to become slaves in, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, France, whatnot. And we are here saying this president needs 5 more years because he is so corrupt, because tax policy is dead, because interest rates are high, because corruption is very high, because the cost of doing business is very high, because he has ruined our education and healthcare system. So for that, he really deserves more years. In fact, Atuoli, who's supposed to be the leader of workers, is saying that this guy is so good, we need to remove term limits so that he can become our president perpetually, and so that he can be able to now sell and auction this country to foreign hands. That is the message that is coming from the leader of the trade union, COTU, the Confederation of Central Organization of Trade Unions.
I always hear him and he always says, COTU has to be, next to government. And I'm like, no. If you look at serious trade unions, they actually have to be against government to fight government. I mean, I've never heard a trade union say that we have to be close to government.
It is sickening. On 14th of February, during the, is it called Valentine's Day? During Valentine's Day, we were remembering the death of Morgan Tsvangirai. He died on 14th of February. And Morgan Tsvangirai was actually the Secretary General of the ZCTU, the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, which is our COTU here. And he led ZCTU into forming NCA, the National Constitutional Assembly. And then they formed MDC, the political party, to lead the country to address the economic issues, these 5 things that I've spoken about. That's what Atuoli should be talking about. But Atuoli is not talking about that. He's saying the term limits should be removed. The president who is good, Luyas and these, Kikuyus and that. And you say, how unfortunate are we as Kenya? The country that should be leading the African liberation is the country that has become really the undoing of African liberation. When the countries are moving towards the BRICS, that's what Atuoli should be discussing. Should Kenya join the BRICS or not? What are the cons and the pros of joining BRICS. How do we address the issues of WTO and how it's affecting us? How do we industrialize? Where's the industrialization policy in this country? That is what the trade union should be talking about. But what are we getting? We are actually addressing, we are meeting with Luya leaders to discuss I don't know what else. Do you see how unfortunate that is?
It's very unfortunate.
It is very, very unfortunate. And that is why we must know, in summary, that Kenya is placed on the eastern gate of Africa, overseeing and overlooking Asia. Asia carries 62% of the global population.
Wow.
62. Africa carries 11% of the global population. So if you put Asia and Africa together, you're talking about 3/4 of the world. Kenya is placed right there at the junction, the eastern gate of Africa. Kenya should be leading the joining of BRICS so that we can be able to do the 5 things that the African Development Bank has recommended. I've said investment in the people, they are called the 5 I's. Investment in the people, infrastructure, institutions, industrialization, and then integration. Those are the 5 things that the African Development Bank recommended when Kaberuka was the president of the African Development Bank, that we need to look at these 5 things. Integration of Africa, industrialization, investment in the people, institutions, and then we must talk about infrastructure. So those are the 5 things that Africa must look at. And Kenya should be the conduit. All the roads to Central African Republic, all the railways to Cameroon should be moving from Kenya towards the heartland of Africa. But we are not doing that because we have presidents who have been stooges, whose only interest is to ensure that Kenya remains as a British and American client state, neocolonial vassal state, which does not industrialize, does not care about its youthful population. Yet we are a very young country. Our median age is 19.6.
Wow.
We are one of the youngest countries on earth. The median age for Africa is 19 point something. Like Kenya is 19.6. The US is 38, which is twice our age in terms of their median.
Twice, actually.
Europe is 42 years.
More than twice.
Japan is the oldest population in the world. They are at 48. Their median age is at 48%. So you see, you are dealing with a population of billions of African young people. Instead of talking industrialization, instead of talking about liberation, you are talking about, how we can be able to get IMF, whatever, how to disinvest from education, how to privatize healthcare, how to bring British army to operate in Kenya, to create American bases in Kenya. Do you see that we have a fundamental problem here, which cannot be solved through these tribal coalitions that are going on in Kenya? So that is really the centrality of IMF in our suffering.
Wow. Let's shift gears to local now. You're running for Nairobi governor. First of all, you have my vote.
Thank you for that.
Because when I look at
thank you
when
for that.
When I look at the ballot, I don't see somebody who has intellectual, power and some, who commands some planning. Because Nairobi is a mess. If you are Nairobi governor, what's the first thing you will do in your first, let's say, 3 or 4 months of your regime?
You have to understand that Nairobi is technically the capital of Africa.
Okay.
There are more than 8,000 organizations that are headquartered in Nairobi. And Nairobi is preferred to over all other African capitals because it's central. If you want to go to Lagos, people fly here, then they fly to Lagos. They connect here to go to Joburg. They connect here to go to Cape Town. They connect to go to these places. So people came to a place. I was working for an international organization. People said, just set up in Nairobi. Just set up in Nairobi because that's the capital of Africa. Nairobi's population is about 7 million. And Nairobi has only two problems. It has a corruption problem and it has a criminal cartel problem. Just two problems, and then everything else is solved. The corruption and the cartel problem, by the way, we have 8 cartels in Nairobi.
Okay.
If you speak to all these people who are seeking to be governor, they don't even know the cartels. They don't know them. I have written about these cartels because I want people to understand that we understand the problem of Nairobi. So you have to, first of all, render all cartels irrelevant in the governance of Nairobi.
Can we name the cartels?
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
The problem with the cartels is that they are actually state house cartels. All the cartels are agents of state house. The cartels are there for state house to access political money. So whether you're talking about the garbage collection cartels, you're talking about the revenue cartels, you're talking about the licensing cartels, you're talking about the land and urban planning cartels, which is probably the most notorious, notorious one, the water and the utilities cartels, all the cartels that we have in Nairobi are people who have state security and state protection. Why? So that they can get money for not delivering services. So there are people in Nairobi who have been given garbage collection contracts. They don't collect the garbage, but they are paid monthly. And they are a priority at City Hall. And the governor has no choice. If the governor says, I am not going to pay these cartels, he will be impeached the following week. It's almost immediate. The MCS, did you see how the MCS were called last year? When they said, we want to impeach this governor because he's incompetent. Half of them were called to State House, half of them were called to Honorable Raila's office. And they were told, quit. You cannot impeach this governor. He is there to serve our interests. And Nairobians are there. They are seeing what's happening, that it's State House, which is actually the patron of the cartels. And what Nairobians say, we are going to elect a governor who is aligned to Ruto, a governor who is aligned to Wamunyoro, a governor who is aligned to so-and-so. So the first thing we have to do, I needed to give the background of corruption and cartels, and that they are sponsored by State House.
Yes.
So State House is so powerful. The only remedy is what we did in the county called Makueni under Professor Kibwana. The saving grace for Nairobi, even before we come in, is to first of all organize the citizens of Nairobi into what we call the Nairobi People's Convention.
Okay.
So that every ward, we have 85 of them, establishes a citizens council and a committee, citizens committee and citizens council, which has representatives from all the residential estates. They must be part of the ward council and the ward committee. Take South Sea, for example. South Sea is a ward. It has very many residential estates. Each of those must come to the South Sea Ward Council and Committee. Do you know why that's so important? So that when MCAs stop the governor from implementing the revolutionary program, then you have to call on the citizens of Nairobi to very quickly collect signatures and dissolve the county government.
It's provided in the constitution.
It's in the Constitution and it's in the County Governments Act.
Oh, okay.
That's what we did in Makueni. When the MCAs refused to pass the budget because they were not being given the contracts, the MCAs. Kibwana, and I was working with him, we collected 117,000 signatures within 2 weeks, and we told Uhuru, dissolve this county government called Makueni. That's when the MCAs said, oh no, please don't dissolve, because they know that once the county is dissolved, they will not be re-elected. That's the only, you have to deal with the MCAs to deal with State House. You have to deal with the MCAs to deal with State House. So that the transformation program of the New Deal for Nairobi is possible. Without the people's structures for governance, you cannot run Nairobi. You cannot deal with the cartels. The cartels will impeach you or they will kill you. That's what they will do. So you have to start from the core problem of corruption, which is sponsored by the cartels. And the cartels are from State House. So nobody who is going to make a difference in Nairobi will make a difference if he does not or she does not have the people organized from the village, the residential estate, to the ward level, to the sub-county, and then to the People's Convention of Nairobi. This is what can secure Nairobi so that we can be able to do the 7-point program of the New Deal very effectively within a very, very short time. So that we can be able to increase own source revenue from the current 21 billion to 68 billion within 5 years. Because the money is being collected by the cartels. Do you understand? There are cartels here who are collecting money from the stalls, the markets, from the rents, liquor licensing. You understand? So the pillage, the money is not coming to the government. It is going to the private cartels. There are lawyers there who are being paid 12 billion shillings. 12 billion shillings is a lot of money. Is all you need to actually transform Nairobi within a year. So you've seen now that Sakaja, the current governor, has handed over the county government to the national government. So that the national government cartels can now take the money quickly, faster, without oversight or by the Assembly and Senate. And the Nairobi Senator has actually spoken to this matter very clearly that what has been signed as the cooperation agreement is actually faulty because it is giving power back to the national government instead of cooperation according to Article 6 of the Constitution. So those are the things you have to do in Nairobi the first week. You must ensure that you exterminate the cartels. Day one. Then increase revenue, stop corruption, and you will transform Nairobi. You only need 1 billion shillings in Nairobi to ensure that all mothers and fathers who need childcare centers are provided that service. Because a lot of Nairobians do not have basic things. Like when house helps, mothers who are house helps, when they go to work, they don't have places to leave their children. So they need childcare centers near to where they stay in the 26 slums of Nairobi, from Kawangware, Kangemi, all the way to Ngomongo and Majengo and all the slums. So you need to provide for, you only need 1 billion shillings a year to feed those children and get care for them so that their mothers can go to work, so that their fathers can go to work and raise revenue to improve their families. So that you can be able to restore security. So everything in Nairobi, a mess is not, Nairobi is not in a mess. Nairobi has failed. It is a collapsed state. We are operating at the mercy of the militia and the cartels, as we called it. So we must take bold steps by centering power amongst the people in the 85 ward councils and committees, which is the collection of leaderships from all the residential estates in the ward. They must come in, the residential associations, and that must become the locus of power. Because if we liberate Nairobi, we will liberate Kenya. Yeah. And once we liberate Kenya, the Pan-African dream of liberating Africa will be on course. And that's what we must do. It's not like we have a choice. We really must do these things, painful as they are. They must be done by somebody, and we are ready to do it.
You know, during last year's protest, I saw the Goons paid by Sakaja. And, you know, I've interviewed Ahmed Kabalu, Sudanese national.
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, but grew up in Britain. And he was telling me how the Janjaweed, which is now the RSF, how it started. It started by Bashir using these guys to do his dirty work. And that's how you graduate from goons to rebels. And now the country is just there's nothing that's going on in Sudan. And I was like, and I'm telling Kenyans, and I know that's what you believe in. If we continue using goons, like the ones we saw, was it the other week, who they shot at the church, and they threw tear gas at the church, and some people were sent there to disrupt the church was it in Central? Where was it?
In Nyeri.
I was like, do you people know where we are heading if we keep on using, if the government keeps on using goons to do dirty work?
Yesterday in Nairobi, for more than 4 hours, motorbikes from Westlands to Kilimani all the way to South Sea, on Thika Road, everywhere. Yesterday was an orgy of violence. They were robbing and hitting people with blunt objects, others had guns, on motorbikes. From Westlands all the way, they were going Raptor Road all the way to these places. They have been licensed. They have been told, collect the money however you want. This is the Mungiki type of repackaging of these so-called vigilante groups. And so that the state is actually campaigning by allowing them. We don't have money to give you, just go and get the money yourself.
Wow.
And so we are a failed state. And once we allow for informal centers of violence and power, you don't have the state. The state has failed because you cannot rein back. You can't reign over groups that you are already allowed to collect rent from the public. So the double taxation that is going on there, you are paying to Nairobi City Council, you are paying to the government, national government, and you are also paying to the informal violence, militia groups and all that. So we have to stop these things. And that's why our vision is very clear that we must restore Nairobi to become the green and safe, secure city of youth, of human rights, and of opportunity. Those 5 things are very, very important in the vision. First of all, you must clean this city. You must clean it. Number 2, you must make it safe and secure. So that it becomes the city of the youth of the world. This actually, Nairobi should be the capital city of the youth of the world. Because we are the youngest city on earth. Youngest city on earth. You see, most people do not know that in other countries, like if you go to Egypt, when the old people retire, they still remain in Cairo. Oh. But 80% of Nairobians, once they retire, they move out of Nairobi. So Nairobi is an extremely young city. But we are the most youth-unfriendly city on earth. We think that the only way to solve youth problems is by killing them, by silencing them, or by paying them to be goons against the other group. So we have a choice to make, in my view, and we cannot allow this kind of failed leadership. I say that we don't have leaders. The problem is that we don't have leaders. We have dealers. We have dealers in office. In office. So we must get leaders who know where Africa needs to be and how do we go there. When we started the show, I told you that we are not where we used to be. We have come many steps, but we have a long way to go because we don't have leadership. And so we must restore leadership, the institution of leadership, so that we know that the big enemy is out there, and we refuse to succumb to the divide and rule nonsense of tribes. Unite so that we can liberate Nairobi, and by liberating Nairobi, we will liberate Africa. Kenya first, and by liberating Kenya, we get the Eastern Gate to become the facilitator of Africa's transformation. People must understand how strategic Nairobi is in the African liberation.
Affordable housing. What do you think about the current affordable housing that's going on?
We discuss corruption as the fourth thing that you have to deal with when you're talking about the industrialization of your country. Let's begin by telling you that Ruto does not have an industrialization policy. He doesn't have one.
Okay.
He can't have it because he knows he was put in office to ensure that Kenya does not industrialize. So he tells us that by importing steel, importing doors, importing window frames, importing things from, that's how you industrialize a country. Now, you don't have to go to the university to know that that is not how you industrialize. You don't industrialize through housing. No. You industrialize by lowering the cost of doing business and by supporting education and skills that can be able to build businesses, lower taxes and interest rates, and that's how you industrialize. So Ruto does not have an industrialization policy. Even these opposition people have not had any who has an industrialization policy. Housing is, first of all, a devolved function. If you go to the fourth schedule of our constitution, housing is not a national government function. Let's begin there. That is supposed to be the business of county governments. To know how to house people through policy incentives. It is not the business of government to build houses. It is the business of the county governments to facilitate the access to land, access to materials, access to things that can be able to make local housing solutions to be developed by the people in that county. The tragedy, I've already said two things about housing. First of all, it can never be part of it is not how you industrialize, by importing everything. Then you think that you can be able to industrialize. So actually it's a conduit for this government to launder money. So you get 70 billion shillings from Kenyan taxes, then you launder it through importing things, and then that money becomes yours. The private companies. We've told Kenyans that you cannot build private houses on public land. So Ruto is building on public land. But those houses are private houses. So how do you use taxes to build on public land, then you get private houses? Does that even make sense?
It doesn't.
That's how criminal this enterprise is. And he claims that it is one of his biggest achievements. The achievement there is that he's able every year to translate 70 billion of public money to his companies using Asian fronts. There are Asian friends here who are now looking like they're the ones who are importing the steel and the window frames from I don't know where else and so on and so forth. So, if you are saying that moving 70 billion, which is taxes, and that's why a lot of Kenyans are not going to vote for him, because the pay slip has been stripped of all money. Kenyans don't take anything home after paying all these Ruto taxes, including the housing tax. So you get money in the name of housing tax, you import things, then you build houses on public land, and then those houses are private houses, which people have to buy from the market at 3.6 million, 7 million in the market. So there has never been a scandal bigger than the housing scandal since independence.
Then the people who will buy will rent it at market price.
Do you know why it is the biggest scandal? Because Goldenberg was private people getting some gold from some funny places and then selling imaginary gold and making money.
The gold, it's very...
But here, we are talking about collecting taxes, 70 billion, 69, 70, 73 billion annually. You get public money from the pay slips of people. You take that money and give it to private companies to import things and build. And then you sell those are private houses that people now, the very people who contributed have to buy, have to buy from. It is so ugly. It's immoral. That's what I'm talking about. It's so immoral in its character and nature. It is sad that Kenyans have allowed it to continue. We went to court and challenged the constitutionality of the housing tax. Judges were bribed to make rulings that were actually unfortunate. And the corruption is so extensive, it has gone to the judiciary, it's in the executive, it is in the police, it's everywhere. And that's why corruption has stolen Kenya's opportunity and chance to industrialize, to liberate itself, and to become a partner in the African liberation.
Wow. And you spoke about Goldenberg. How did you let Patni go?
What did I tell you about corruption? Corruption is the reward you are given as local rulers so that you can allow the foreigners to take away everything. So there is no surprise about that. Corruption has been there from the first day. Next month, no, when are we doing Pio GAMA Pinto? Pio GAMA Pinto is on 24th.
24th
of February.
Oh, yes.
Pio GAMA Pinto is on 24th of February.
Yes.
In 1965, 24th of February, 1965, just a year after independence. Because 63, you remember we became independent in 63 June, then we became a republic. So 64 is the only year that passed. On February 24th, 65, Pio GAMA Pinto had already been assassinated by the Kenyatta regime. Why was Pio GAMA Pinto assassinated? Because Kenyatta had received money from Britain. I saw you discussing that in your show,
yes,
which was very impressive.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that we were borrowing money from Britain so that we can compensate white people to leave our land for us? I mean, if that's not a scandal, I don't know what is. That's how corruption works. So Britain sends money for Kenya to pay white settlers so that they can leave the land to Kenyans. Land which they did not buy. Land which they stole and kill our people to take. So we borrow money to come and pay them. What does Kenyatta do? Kenyatta does not even pay the whites. He turns that money to his money. And the Pio GAMA Pinto is going to Parliament on this particular day to ask the question on the floor of Parliament for the government to account for how the 9 billion pounds had been utilized to compensate, these white farmers. Because Pinto was aware that this money had been stolen by government officials at Treasury in favor of Kenyatta. And so what happens? Pio GAMA Pinto was killed at his driveway here in Parklands. He didn't get to Parliament. That was the first high-profile assassination in post-independent Kenya. That's why I tell you that this is really flag independence and that Britain did not leave this place. America has never left this place. We are a vassal country. And until we understand that our problems need us to deal with the internal enemy as much as the external enemy, we will not succeed.
Oh, so he didn't even buy the land from white people?
He didn't. That's how the money was privatized.
Oh.
That's how the money was privatized. And that was the first, biggest corruption scandal in post-independent Kenya, which cost Pio GAMA Pinto his life.
And by the way, he was murdered 3 days after Malcolm X.
After Malcolm X, and the two were collaborating internationally under the coalition of the African and Asian liberation movements. In the Pio GAMA Pinto was one of the most ideologically clear leader in Kenya. He was supporting Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and telling them how to shape policy for liberation. And he was not allowed to leave.
Wow. And
he was not allowed to leave.
Cyprian, to me, after colonialism, the biggest problem is our founding fathers, most of them in Africa, because most of them started this trend of bad leadership and of corruption and of perpetuating neocolonialism.
No, that's an excuse. I mean, that you see, you are Kenyatta and you are here and you've seen what has just happened to Patrice Emery Lumumba. So we have to have context. Why most of the founding fathers became corrupt as they became. I'm not excusing them. I'm explaining. I'm an intellectual. I'm not excusing them. I'm explaining why the behavior of most of them ended up being what it became. It's the context in Africa. You've even seen in 2026 that America can go to Venezuela and remove a president. 2026. What are you talking about? 1963. This imperialist, monster lives on blood. It destroys people in their millions for them to remain where they are. Just see what they have done in Gaza. See what they are doing in Iran. See what they are doing in countries. I saw the Zimbabwean president being asked a question and he couldn't answer it. He was asked about his view about what has happened in Venezuela. He couldn't even answer it because he knows these people can come for him the following day and take him away. Do you know why? Because these people have refused to do what Cuba did. Cuba is just a few kilometers away from Florida. But they have survived for 8 decades next door to America. Why? Because they did what I'm trying to do in Nairobi. You must organize people in cells. You can't deal with this monster all by yourself or because you are elected. You have to organize the people in your country. Look at what is happening in Burkina Faso. The people themselves have to be the owners of the revolution. They must defend it. They must defend it. So our role as leaders is to organize the people so that the people can be able to stand up. Look what they did to Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. Look at what they have destroyed African countries through these things called, regime changes, coups, decapitation of leaderships. Including a few years ago, you saw the son of the former British Margaret Thatcher. The son was involved in a contract in Equatorial Guinea.
I remember.
It is active. It's going on. These people have not left Africa. So you understand. You saw what progressive people like Nyerere, what happened to them. The policies, the imperialist policies completely crippled the Ujamaa policy so that it fails. That's what they do. They destroy your economy. You cannot be able to provide services to your people. Then your people say, remove him. So Kenyatta was operating in that space. a lot of these people operating in that space where they know that we are having a young country which we have to very carefully try and bring together. But some of them were not like Nyerere. Some of them were like Kenyatta. So when Nyerere was telling Kenya that you've become a man-eat-man society, what did Kenyatta say? Afadhali sisi. I'll translate that in English. Afadhali sisi. Nyinyi ni man-eat-nothing society.
Oh, that's what he said?
That's what Kenyatta told Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, that Kenya is better because it's a man-eat-man society, because Tanzania is a man-eat-nothing society. So that's the context of the 1960s and 70s. And we must not miss it, because the kinds of coups that happened in West Africa, in all over this place, were many. And the divide during the Cold War between the West and the East was very sharp. So if you wanted to be removed from power, you just needed to be called a communist. And then you are removed. So it was very difficult. Those were very difficult days operating here. And the people like Jaramogi, people like Bildad Kagia understood the context that we were working in during those days. And so the struggle has to continue in Kenya. And we can see that the young people really have the spirit of Mau Mau. And that is why they are such a threat, not to William Ruto alone, but to the powers that be. IMF and World Bank and because the young people were not just occupying Parliament and State House. They were going to occupy the US Embassy in Gigiri. They were going to occupy churches, because they understand, young people in this country understand that these things are actually working together to continue with the neocolonial state and the neocolonial policy and the subjugation of Africans and exploiting of Africans, so that we can remain underdeveloped even with all the resources that we have. So young people are the ones we now must invest in. We must organize them, educate them, encourage them, so that they can be able to organize more than mobilizing. Because young people are very good in mobilizing, but they are very disorganized. They are not organized. So we must build on their strengths, which is mobilization, using technology and others.
Yes.
By organizing them to coherent political parties that are ideological, and organizations and social movements that can be able to destroy the neocolonial state, and so that we can be able to build a democratic and developmental state. That's so important for us to march west, to work with the rest of Africans in liberating our countries. We will need to talk about the unification of Africa, because that is central to the liberation of Africa. But we must start at home. And what you saw young people in Kenya doing, is that they stood in solidarity with Tanzanians.
That was beautiful, yeah.
We are in solidarity with Ugandans. We are in solidarity with South Sudan. We are in solidarity with Ethiopia. We are in solidarity across Africa. Young people are our only hope. We have to do our role of mentoring them, helping them to organize, so that they can use their abilities and competencies to liberate Africa.
You believe in democracy, right?
I'm a Democrat every day.
But you've mentioned Ibrahim Traoré,
yes,
who entered power through a coup d'etat.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
My position is very clear. We are on the side of Africans. We are not on the side of stooges of imperialism.
Okay.
So we now are at a place where we are going to encourage that Burkina Faso moves towards the democratic orbit. But if you ask the people of Burkina Faso, they will tell you that democracy, liberal democracy, as they have known it since 1960, I think 62, when they were given their flag independence, has not created schools for them, has not built factories, has not built roads, has not done anything. It was Thomas Sankara during those 4 years who tried to do agriculture and education and the liberation of women. So what I'm saying is that liberal democracy has failed. Let me give you the example of Nigeria so that I can conclude on that. Nigeria has 220 million people. 98 million registered to vote. Only 27 million turned up.
Wow.
Tinubu, that gentleman who is the president of
Bola
Tinubu, was elected with only 8.8 million votes.
Wow.
8.8 million votes in a country of 220 million. You know, what I'm saying is this, that we can sit here and cheat ourselves that democracy works in Africa. It does not. I've told you that we don't even elect our president here. He's imposed. He's rigged using technology and other things. Look at Nigeria. Nigerians know who Bola Tinubu is. I'm not going to speak about it here. But Africans don't believe in this thing called liberal democracy, the ballot. It's a farce. It does not work and it does not deliver the goods. So the conversation about democracy cannot remain at democracy the form. It has to go to democracy the substance. What is the meaning of having democracy? It is ensuring that the people are at the center of the development and of decision making. So what's the business of calling ourselves a democracy in Kenya? Because we go to elections after every 5 years, when it's IMF and the World Bank who are running this place. All the policies that members of parliament are making are against us. We have a parliament which even makes a bill, a law, which says that the president can sell parastatals, state-owned enterprises, without parliamentary approval. Now, is that a parliament? Really? That's not a parliament. So let us contextualize the conversation around democracy. Democracy is so that it can deliver goods to the people and so that the people can participate and make decisions that are in their interest. In countries like Kenya, where the state exists against the national interest, that democracy needs to be reviewed. That democracy needs to be reviewed. The people who are celebrating Ibrahim Traoré are doing so because they can see that this Traoré administration is delivering the goods. So the question is,
which is better?
What delivers the goods? Not which is better. What delivers the goods? Is it military rule that secures our titanium and our uranium? Instead of selling it at 0.8 cents to France, this guy is selling the same at 220. And he's raising money to build roads and schools and agriculture and irrigation and hospitals and processing plants. People are saying, so what delivers the goods? It's leadership that delivers goods. If democracy is not going to produce leaders, even in Nairobi, it's of no use. It's of no use. So I am a Democrat on the understanding that democracy must produce leaders that deliver the goods. If it is not for institutions and leaders that deliver goods, what use is it? Is Uganda democratic? Yes, it is. Why? Because they go to elections every 5 years. Are we lying to ourselves? Is Tanzania democracy? Yes, it is. Why? Because they go to elections. And then what happens after that? What happens in between the 5 years? The people have no say in terms of what parliament does. The people have no say in terms of how police kill them. So then we are a democracy in what way? Democracy has 12 values. They must be seen to be in place. We can't just cherry pick one and don't talk about the goods that democracy has to produce. So if democracy cannot produce the goods, it has to be reviewed. We are not against democracy. We are saying review it. review democracy so that it delivers the goods. We can't just keep going to elections like in Nigeria, where corrupt men are the only ones who get elected. Then they steal. Then they frustrate people who want to invest in industries. You know what Dangote has gone through in Nigeria. He has cried heavy tears to operationalize the oil refinery there. So we know these things. That's why we went to school. We know exactly where the problem in Africa is. And we must, now the East African community, for example, is bankrupt because we are donor driven. 68% of the African Union budget is foreign funded. The East Africa community budget, 96% is foreign funded. Wow. Now donors have pulled back the money since Trump, and the East African community can't pay workers. But by next year they will be unable to even pay electricity bills. Wow. And you say that we are independent, and you say that we are a democracy. We are a democracy. What do you mean by being a democracy? If you can't even pay your dues to the African Union, if you can't even pay your dues to the East Africa community. So what is the meaning of a democracy? If it cannot be able to build institutions, allow for free media that is independent, allow for economic participation and economic rights. You can't discuss democracy as if it is separated from the realities on the ground. It has to deliver the goods for it to be legitimate. If it does not do that, it needs to be reviewed.
It must be reviewed.
And we will review it. Yes, we have to review it, and we have to rebuild it. We have to re-engineer democracy for us to secure Africa. So we have to be very clear as Pan-Africanists what we are talking about. We know our situation of insubordination. We are underdeveloped because we are at the periphery. That's where I started. The periphery of capital and the periphery of imperialism. The core of imperialism still controls us and dictates everything that happens here. If you do not agree with these Americans and with these imperialists, they come and remove your president from office. And the world is quiet. So what Trump has done is that he has collapsed what we call the rule-based international order. The rule-based international order and this whole thing called United Nations collapsed with Trump's invasion of Venezuela. Because after that, he has created something now is called the Board of Peace, BOP. And Africans are not even talking about what's the meaning of America walking out of the United Nations and establishing something called BOP, the Board of Peace. What does that mean to global peace? What does that mean to the rule-based international order? What's the place of international law in Trump 2? Is that international law doesn't matter. The rule-based international order has collapsed. And we are seated here cheating ourselves that the international community is our partner and that we are going to secure global peace. No, we are on our own. We must organize as Africans to liberate ourselves.
Yes.
Nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody helped the Chinese to liberate themselves from Japanese and American conquest. What they call the Chinese 100 years of Chinese humiliation under the heavy shoe of the Japanese. They didn't cry to anybody to help them. They had to organize and liberate themselves from the yoke of Japanese misadventure and the colonization. Nobody is sitting somewhere thinking about how Africans are going to be liberated. We have to do it ourselves.
Wow.
We have to do it ourselves.
I'm happy there's a Kenyan talking about this because Kenyans rarely talk about Pan-Africanism. And let me tell you, if you look at the media, independent media space like the one I have right now, it's very few. It's me, it's Lynn, it's Alpha House. Very, very few. And
you know why? You know why that is the case? Because we all have been fed on the menu of Western whitewashed education. We are all victims. I mean, what I'm telling you, I didn't learn it at the university.
Me too.
Yeah. I didn't learn it at the University of Nairobi when I was doing my political science. I had to join Pan-Africanist radical education groups to actually discover what the problem is. Why Kenyans think that they are exceptional, that they are not even part of the African problem. Because we can go to the United States of America, we can go to Europe, we speak English, and we are the good boy, and so on and so forth. We are actually one of the weakest link to African liberation.
Yeah.
We in Kenya. That's why you don't see, that's why the conversation is tribal.
Very.
And the people who are discussing tribal education, tribal organizing, we need power as Luos, we need power as Kikuyus, we need power. Power to do what?
Moi was president for 24 years.
Power to do what? Power to do what? You are in a neocolonial state. You can't be allowed to industrialize. So you want power to do what? So that you can steal from the taxes. I mean, is that your ambition? That's not our ambition. Yeah. So let us now educate. Nobody's going to, this space is for educating, political education, so that young Kenyans especially can understand that they are on the right path to liberation by rejecting these tribal formations, by electing men and women who are conscious, ideologically clear in terms of what needs to be done to bring a difference to Kenya. Kenyans need to know that they cannot continue to elect agents of imperialism like William Ruto and get a difference in terms of their agriculture. When foreigners have been brought in to do GMOs and take our land, and he has sold the rest of North Africa, Northern Kenya to do carbon credits. And he has auctioned Nairobi to these funny railway cities and choking up a lot of debt. This is how enemies of our liberation look like. But we are being fed with cheap propaganda about what development looks like. Distributing cooking oil and a packet of unga and what, and this is development. That's not how you industrialize. Those packets of unga cannot build industries. Packets of unga distributed cannot. Importing motorbikes, borders, to give to young boys so that they drop out of school is not how you industrialize. No. You industrialize by doing the 5 things we've spoken about.
Yes.
You have to deal with interest rates. You have to fix tax. You have to deal with the cost of doing business. You have to crush corruption, not negotiate with it.
Crush.
You have to crush it. You have to crush it. And then you must invest in the people's education, healthcare, housing, agriculture, and food security, and food sovereignty, food autonomy. That is how countries progress. Countries do not progress by doing tribal coalitions and distributing unga and corn flour and cooking oil. No, that's not how you industrialize. That's not how you develop. And even if we are few, we must be persistent and consistent in educating the people of Kenya that we are a weak link to Pan-Africanism and to the liberation of our continent. We can't have stooges who are, genuflecting before our imperial masters in the exporting our young people to go and scrub floors and wash aged people in other people's countries and they send dollars and then claim that that is development.
Yes.
No, that's not how you industrialize. So that is what we need to say. And this has to go across even to the so-called political opposition, who are clueless. They themselves, you hear the language of their rallies. It is, we Kikuyus, we Mount Kenya, we have to be in government. The Luos are saying we need power. And the, Kambas are saying it is our time to have power. and the others are saying it's our time to have power, and you are looking at them and saying, these guys are enemies of the people. They actually are our problem. Where is the content of what the problem of Kenya is and Africa, and the solution, how we must organize and ideologically clarify what Kenya's liberation looks like? And so I want to conclude by saying that our third liberation must be responsible for completing the first liberation. That's where we have to start from. Number two, we must secure our democracy so that it's not empty democracy like what we have here. Number three, we must invest in economic liberation through industrialization. And number four, we must join Africa in doing those 5 things that were adopted by the African Union. We have the 5 I's.
5 I's.
We call the 5 I's. Industrialization, integration, infrastructure, institutions, and investing in the people. That's what Africa has to do. We must be consistent until every African knows what the solution looks like. Otherwise, Russian men will be coming here and abusing our women.
Yeah.
And walking out without even being pinched. And they do that because they know that African countries and states are failed states. This is how a failed state looks like.
When you allow anybody to come here and do anything.
We don't have sovereignty.
You know, by the way, Cyprian, as we conclude, last year I interviewed, I don't know if you know the Moses West Foundation.
Yes, I've heard about it.
This man produces water from thin air, and it's high pressured water.
Yeah.
So I interviewed the number 2 guy in the company, and he told me, because I asked him, have you approached African presidents or leaders to bring these projects to Africa? And he told me, well, the problem with African leaders is they want to do business with this machine.
Completely. First of all, you have to pay them for them to allow you, and they want the ownership in that company. So it's a curse. We have a massive problem, and citizens are not questioning these dictators and tyrants. They are instead dancing for them and singing praise songs and using social media to glorify mediocrity and glorify criminals. These are not our friends. They are our enemies. They are the enablers of the continuation of neocolonialism. So all these solutions are available. But Africans are not being allowed to use them because their governments know that they are collaborating with external powers so that we remain underdeveloped and so that we can have a mass of unemployed people who you buy very easily using $1 to vote for you, so that they can continue to steal the taxes. And so we have to understand where the problem is, that it is us who have to organize and liberate our countries. We can't leave it to anybody.
Well, if you could look at this camera and give your last word to Nairobi citizens, and if you can say a word to Africans, because we have a lot of African Americans and
that's right,
Africans all over the world watching this. Yeah.
Let me say this, that liberating Nairobi is strategic to liberating Kenya. We need leaders in Nairobi who will organize Nairobians so that they can stop the exploitation and the neocolonial humiliation that we have lived under the Kenyan successive presidents over the last 7 decades. Because if we liberate Nairobi, we are going to open up Kenya and liberate Kenya to prepare it as a partner in the Pan-Africanist dream of unification and liberation. If we do not liberate Africa economically, we cannot be able to liberate Africa politically. But we cannot liberate Africans economically if we do not organize in Pan-African language, we say, if you do not organize, you will agonize. So the agonizing that is going on across Africa is because we have not organized. So that in every country, we can get a government that is a partner of the people in the African Liberation Project, the African Liberation Project. That is why we are asking Nairobians to all register to vote here in Nairobi, because nearly 40% of Nairobians vote elsewhere, where they don't live, where they don't work, where they don't vote. So imagine you travel up country, register there, vote there, then come back to Nairobi. Then you find that the person who was elected as your governor is actually an appendage, is a stooge of State House. Then the corruption continues, the cartels continue, services are not provided. Here is the opportunity to ask Kenyans to register, Nairobians to register in Nairobi and register to vote for a Pan-African, a Pan-Africanist, a revolutionary, and a comrade, myself, Cyprian Nyamwamu. This is the opportunity for Africans and Nairobians to unite across Africa, to organize from Senegal to Nairobi, to Kenya, to Tanzania, to stand up and liberate our countries so that we can be able to unite as Africans, liberated to free our continent once and for all. That is why I'm running for governorship of Nairobi, so that we can be able to make Nairobi the center of Pan-Africanist organization.
Wow.
I want to be here to host Africans from all the 55 countries. We want to finance our own Pan-Africanist liberation. We must finance it. We must create space for Africans. We don't want Nairobi to be the place where Akina Kizza Besigye are being abducted from, where Turkish nationals, Abdullah Öcalan, it is 27 years since Abdullah Öcalan was abducted in Nairobi and given back to torture. So Nairobi must become the space for African organizing. And that is going to need a leader in Nairobi who is committed to the liberation of Africa and the liberation of Kenya.
Wow. Well, you've had the man. You've had the man. By the way, where can they follow you on social media and anywhere?
Correct. So Cyprian Nyamwamu Mutumishi, that's on Facebook. Cyprian Nyamwamu on IG. We are on Twitter. Cyprian Nyamwamu on X. You will find us on Cyprian Nyamwamu on TikTok. So follow us and let us continue the conversation. We must organize so that we stop agonizing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Subscribe, guys. We are trying to build this Pan-African space. And you've heard the man. He has dropped knowledge on top of knowledge on top of knowledge. It's up to you to listen, but it's up to us to liberate Africa. We must liberate Africa. Remember, we must sell Africa to Africa. We've been selling Africans and Africa to Europeans, to America. It's time for us to reclaim it and sell it back to ourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.